Hello, listener. Welcome and welcome back to A Walk with A.F.I podcast. How have you been? How is the month of March treating you? Myself, the month of March has been, well, wonderful, great. At the same time, I've had moments that I've been kind of down, but keep fighting, right? Yes. So, whatever you are facing this month, know that you are more than a conqueror, right? Yeah. And about today's topic, I'm really excited because today we are talking about something that I know so many of us struggle with, the pressure to have a perfect start. You know how sometimes you want to start something like a project, a relationship, a new habit, but you keep holding back because you feel like you're not ready. Or maybe you're scared that if you don't get it right from the beginning, it's not worth it or it's not worth doing at all. Yeah, I know because I've been there. And today I want to share a personal experience that really shifted my perspective and helped me to see that progress is more important than perfection. So let me be honest with you. Yes, truth is not truth today, but it is truth. Okay, so I procrastinated on starting an online presence for the longest time that I can remember. I've always loved having meaningful conversations. It's something that comes naturally to me. But the idea of putting myself out there in the public, oh God, no way. That scared me. I kept telling myself, if I'm going to start, it has to be perfect. I wanted to have the perfect content, the perfect delivery, and the perfect structure. I felt like if I didn't have it all figured out from the beginning, it would be a waste of time. And because of that, I did not start. Yes, I kept sitting on the idea, convincing myself that I needed to prepare more or figure it out first. But the truth is, I was just scared of not doing it well enough. And eventually, I decided that I wanted to start a podcast. And guess what? Even then, the overthinking didn't stop. I kept questioning myself, what if I don't sound good enough? What if no one listens? What if nobody wants to hear my voice? What if my voice is not unique? What if my voice is too deep? I kept thinking, what if I mess up? And so I just tried to stay stuck and stay back. Then one day I was talking to a couple of people about it, and at that particular point, they encouraged me to just give it a try. Around that time too, I was reading this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. You need to read that book, guy. That book is stop notch. So the book really shifted my thinking, it shifted my mindset. It made me realize that I was caring so much about the wrong things. I was too focused on how people might perceive me, whether they do like my content or if I do sound professional enough. But that book reminded me that you can't control how people will receive what you put out there. You can only control the effort you put in. And more importantly, it taught me that perfection isn't the goal, but progress is. That was the mindset shift that I needed. I told myself, you know what? Just start. Even if it's messy, even if it's not making sense too much, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not polished, my dear, just start. And that's exactly what I did. I recorded my first episode. I did that over and over and over again. And honestly, it wasn't perfect when I put it out there. I stumbled over my words a bit and I wasn't sure how people would respond. But the more I kept going, the more comfortable I became. And the more consistent I was, the better I got. That's when it really hit me. Growth doesn't come from getting it perfect the first time. It comes from showing up consistently and learning as you go. And I think that's where most of us get stuck. We feel like we need to have it all figured out before we start. But that's not how growth works. Starting it messy is better than not starting at all. But why is it so important to trust the process instead of fearing an imperfect start? Because you'll be like, okay, after you'll be talking about, me just starting. Why is that even important? I can just stay and wait till whenever I feel like I am ready, right? But here are reasons why it is better to start it messy than not starting at all. You learn through doing, not thinking. You don't learn by thinking, you learn by doing. So no matter how much you plan or prepare, some lessons can only come through experience. When you start, you begin to see what works and what doesn't. You get to adjust, you get to improve, and you get to sharpen your skills along the way. But you can't get all of this, you can't get the clarity unless you begin. So just start. I keep saying it, just start. Perfection isn't real. It's a moving target. So there's no such thing as the perfect start, because your definition of perfect will keep shifting. It will keep improving. It will keep getting better. So you might think you need to have everything figured out, but once you start, you realize that the things you thought about that really mattered do not actually matter that much. Like, you are probably giving the F word about those things that you are not supposed to give the F word about, you understand, right? So take my podcast for example. I thought I needed to sound polished and professional from the beginning, but what really connected with people wasn't the perfection, it was authenticity. When I stopped trying to sound a certain way and just spoke from the heart, I'm just speaking like A.F.I, like myself. And that's when people started to resonate with it. I'm like, oh, A.F.I, I love what you did. I love how you sound. I was like, ooh, wow, interesting. And if I just sat down and say, okay, I'm not starting, how would somebody know that my voice is actually interesting and unique? Okay, and let me say this, that progress builds confidence. When you take the first step, even if it's shaky, you are teaching yourself that you can figure things out. Confidence doesn't come from knowing exactly how things will go. It comes from proving to yourself that you can handle whatever happens along the way. And God works through the process. That's one thing I've actually learned, that it's not just about the outcome. Let's look at this from a spiritual perspective. It really comes down to trusting God's timing. There's this particular Bible verse that I love so much, that says that, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. That verse reminds me that God isn't asking us to be perfect. He's asking us to trust Him enough to start. So think about it. If you could see the whole picture from the beginning, you wouldn't need faith. Growth happens when you trust that even if it's not clear, even if that part is not clear, you are still trusting. So God is working with you. Don't think that He isn't. And He's shaping you through the process. So trusting the process is actually very important to God as well. And it all boils down to trusting His timing too. And that's why it's not about perfection. It's about trust. Trust that God will give you the grace to grow as you go. So don't trust that it will start the way you want. Most times it won't. Mostly it's through the process that you get to grow as you go. So failure isn't final. I know the society has made it seem like when you fail, you failed and you are a failure. But failure is not final. It's always part of the process. Sometimes we hesitate because we are scared of failing, because we are scared of what the society will say, because we are scared of how people will perceive us. But failure is just a feedback. When you put in something, when we were in school, they taught us giggle in, giggle out. That's whatever you put in, you get a feedback, right? So it's always like that. Whatever effort, whatever you do, whatever the input, there will be a feedback, there will be an output. So most times when we see failure as that output, as that feedback, it will help us to work better and know that, okay, what happened? What went wrong? What went south during the process of getting the feedback, of getting that outcome? So rather than see failure as the end, no, see it as part of the process, because every setback teaches you something if you let it. If you really, really look into whatever happened, you will realize that there is always a lesson to learn. And when I stumbled through my first few episodes, I didn't see it as failure, honestly, because I have friends that keep telling me, A.F.I, you get better, just keep pushing, just keep recording. If I just record, Just keep doing it and you will get better. And that really helped me not to see myself as a failure. I saw it as a part of the learning curve. And looking back now, I'm really grateful for the moments because they helped me to get better, and I'm still getting better. And I know that it will keep on getting better. So, what's that one thing that you've been holding back from because you are scared it won't be perfect? Is it starting a project? Is it building a relationship or taking the next step in your faith? Let this be your sign to start. Even if you don't have it all, if you don't have all the answers yet, if you don't have, it's figured out to that point that you think will be the best, even if it feels uncomfortable, just start. Progress is the goal and not perfection. And this week, I want you to take one small step toward that thing that you've been hesitating on. It doesn't have to be big, right? It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start. The beauty is in the process, and trust me, I am rooting for you always. And thank you today for spending this wonderful time with me. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, progress over perfection always. I will see you in the next episode. Keep striving. Love you. Bye.